invite you, I add you, and then you should be in.
We are accepting.
So, weirdly, you're on the side. Yes! So we are making 2 videos. Let's not forget to do to record on the Zoom.
We have hit record. We should be recording, and yes, indeed we are. So hello and welcome to our co-creator class.
And so I'm inviting as many people as I can.
Excellent.
Because I'm crazy.
So co-creator blast number 7. Yes, we are number 7. So this is about co-creation in a disrupted world. How are we adding value? And here we're going to be, there is a leading question. So hi, Lenore. Awesome. I'm glad our friends are joining. Yay. So we have a question, and just use the comments below. So the question is, if you were queen or king, because we are fair here, of your workplace, what are 3 missing factors that you would change or add to your workplace? And you could do anything because you are queen or king.
What would it be?
What would it be? Do 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 do. Okay, so I was thinking very good. So we're gonna be pondering on that. We're gonna let you give you some time for that, because this is important as we talk to what is value creation in a disrupted world. It's personal, and it's about how do I speak your love language. Okay, so with that, authenticity, very good. So making sure how
that's interesting,
authentically showing up for one another and truly talking about what matters. I love it. Very good. Another factor. And Cecile, what would it be for you? I mean, as we are freelancers, it is, but as we think about our client work, what are some things that would be an important factor if you were the queen for the day and could make that decision?
I would say transparency. You know, to be clear about what the expectations are, what can be done, what can't be done, and be okay with, well, sometimes we just don't know. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, transparent.
Yeah.
And for you, what would be interesting, or what would you add?
I love it. So one thing would be for me, making sure that there's multiple people, so that there's multiple voices heard as part of the solutions, and looking at how are we being included or and also as inclusive. So I love it, Lenore. So treating employees as customers, and I think that that really is that piece around approach of, you know, every day each employee has the option. You know, even though it's a disrupted market in terms of from a seller's market to now a buyer's market around talent, your key talents, your people, it's really about how, you know, it's not just work. These are people. So how are we caring for that and really making sure that that treatment is at the front of it? So I think here, how are we having diversity of thought? How are we having transparency? How are we showing up authentically as who we are and not having to code switch so hard that we don't even recognize ourselves? And it's around treating employees as customers. Love it. Thank you for your participation. And with that, we turn it over now to you officially, Anne-Cécile.
Yes, and it's officially the start with who are we and what are we doing here? So I'm going to present Elizabeth first. She is the Chief Talent Navigator, and she helps your organization go through the talent development, learning, and branding at Transforming Talents. And I am Anne-Cécile Graber. I'm an intercultural international organizational developer, a coach, and a facilitator. I do many things. I love it. And so why are we here? Well, if you listen to us carefully, we are on our 7th blast. That means we had 6 blasts before. And we focused on different principles that are important for us as co-creators. And those are the followings. First, we worked on what is the co-creator space. So if you are asking yourself the question, what is that? Just go to the first video. Then we looked at no pain, no gain with the blast number 2. In the third blast, we had lucky, did you know time, looking at the science behind all those things that we say with our expert, Elizabeth. She's the one looking for it. She knows everything.
I am the research queen, so that would be one thing that I would,
that's her thing. And so after looking at those different research that we have, we looked at adapting and thriving in the blast number 4. In the number 5, we looked at being a learner fool or a learning fool, with the idea that we have to learn during our lifelong existence. There is no end to learning, just the beginning. And last week, no, 2 weeks ago, let me just come back. 2 weeks ago, we looked at Enamoring Users User. Who is this end user and what does he really want and how to make them love you so much? And so let's now jump into the blast of co-creator space with today's topic, which is focusing on value creation in a disrupted world. First, what is value creation and for whom?
Yeah.
Why do we want to create value? And what is the greatest purpose of all that? So if we are creating a solution for a specific customer, he has a problem, but are we helping the rest of the world, or are we a nuisance for the, for the Umwelt, for the world? And so what one of the questions we have is that if we are adding value to the life of someone, like our end customer, and we are reducing the value for society, should we still do it? Good question. And it's the idea of having those car manufacturers who are helping us to move from the point A to point B. But at the same time, right now, the cars we are using are damaging the environment. Do we want to support that? Is it really creating value? What do we really want to get out of this value creation? And so
I think perhaps to that point is that piece also, just to kind of marry on that, is that, mobility is needed. So even in times of pandemic, it is that piece around what is, so last week where we were talking about how are you enamoring the users as to what is the real need behind it. We were talking about, you can either do lawnmowers or you can do short grass that only grows to a particular type and is really full on lush. And so as we look to now with the pandemic, a lot of us aren't using our cars very much. So it is that piece to say, as we look to moving forward, what are those aspects around the need, ergo like mobility, but also now looking at, okay, what is the distance to other people, et cetera, et cetera. So understanding that, in a disrupted world around how the environment just changed as to how do people even interact with your product. That's that piece to be asking as we look to what is value creation.
And that's also really interesting to realize that the value creation also depends on the context. So for some people, what creates value for one is like, I just don't care about that. And so it's also to look at when there is a crisis such as the corona crisis, how do you still create value when you can't, when you feel that you can't? And there are good examples of restaurants who just closed their doors and they said, can't do anything. And others were like, hey, we still want to add value to the life of our clients. So we are going to offer drive-in solutions. So we are still adding value in a different way. Exactly.
And there was a lot of pivoting. Like, it was really funny. My friend was telling me how her hairdresser mixed up the hair coloring, and she would drive to different people's house so they could pick up their specific hair coloring, because a lot of the women were freaking out about going gray,
What?
that we'll just go like this. But it is that piece to say, in a disruptive world, how are you pivoting to what Cecile was saying, to say, okay, how can you continue to create value? Because the needs are still there. It's about how are you getting creative around delivering to those needs.
And that's really the interesting question. Are we able to move as we see the situation change? And will we come back to normal afterward? Because maybe you realize that the real need of your client was to have the hair color delivered to their home. And so you create a new value stream for you and for your client. And so that's also really the question about this value creation only exists when we understand the pain, like the real need behind. And we looked at that in the last blast, but I think it's again important to remind us we need to understand the pain, and we need to understand what is the desired outcome.
Yes,
like for
absolutely.
Give me something to not have white hair, that is something else than just making, like, having a color made. I would just eat a pill and then I'll have my beautiful hair forever. I'll be happy. My pain would be out. That doesn't exist yet, so let me dream. But
but it would also mean if you got a really bad haircut, it would be your worst haircut for the rest of your life because your hair would no longer grow.
I could do that too. But then there will be another pill for that,
Oh, okay. Very good.
So if we are that far, I guess we have a solution too. And so it's really about understanding the pain, the desired outcome, and basically creating the road from point A to point B. And creating value is really answering a need and creating a faster way to get there, a better way, a stronger way, a happier way. It depends on what people want to experience.
Yeah.
And so another question that I had while preparing the idea of value creation, sometimes we have value creation, but is it always correlated with the price we pay? And we see that with the service of many nurses who are working their ass off to save lives. And it's not correlated to the value they create because they save life. And it's also the question about what do we really value? Do we value a better life, a better, having time to spend with our family, or do we value materialistic things? Both are okay. Like I'm more into the spiritual stuff, but what is important for us? And where do we put the value tag on it when we create the value?
So, and I think that this is important also, just to kind of touch on that point, is there is right now in a disruptive world a shift as to, here what is, and we don't want to go too far down that path, but what we're saying is that as we look to how the environment changes, how in terms of times of uncertainty, in terms of here looking at what are the things that really matter, how are we placing value on them, and how are we approaching them, that this is that piece to say, how are we looking at what that love language around what people need and how we approach it in our in what we do. And Baz joins. So I'm just loving it. I have some friends joining in, so good to see you guys. So here the thing is for value creation and for looking at how things shift and change. And as we look to, for example, environmental, social, and governance organizations, they're actually doing better than the regular standards and poors because they've taken this into account in terms of how do we continue to create value, how do we have structures in place towards those sustainability goals, because there is a shift in the population as to what is important and what are people valuing. Yeah. And this comes back into, a little bit of inspiration from Dirty Dancing. So because it is, it's Tuesday, you got to get some good old goodies out there. So this is Otis Redding. So Lenore, so anyone who wants to sing along with me, and Baz, I know you can, is let me tell you what I'm saying. I'm just a love man. I'm nothing but a love man. I'm a fancy man. So it's this piece of I'm just a fire of a man. So the question is, dear Otis, how many people did you actually convince? How many people did you actually convince, dear Otis? And yeah, he actually was rather attractive, and it was a good song to dance to. But it is that piece of oftentimes, particularly in sales, people will say, I am the best, I'm the biggest, I'm the brightest, you need to come to me. And it's that piece to say, as a customer, if I don't understand how you will actually help me, if I don't understand how you're speaking my love language as to what my customers actually need from me, and how working together or buying something will actually make a difference, then it's something that it's going to be a catchy tune and maybe I'll remember it. But in terms of actually, will I buy it and how will it actually help? That's a completely different story. So, and Cecile said it, it's that piece to say, what is the research here? So, you know, here, when we're looking at co-creation and when we're looking at what is it making difference, because we're always looking at how do we get those different pieces of people thinking, that transparency, that authenticity, you know, those factors we talked about at the beginning. How do we create an environment where awesome, I love it. Listening is the love, I love it. All right, so this is that piece of how are we bold enough? So today I was in the True Inclusion, and I can't tell you how many people say, I can't believe they put that out. I can't believe they published that. I can't believe they launched that product. That makes no sense. And so it's also that piece to say, what were they thinking? How were they bold? How were people actually bringing in their voice and saying, is this the right thing to do? So value creation in a volatile world is this piece around how are you innovating? How are you teaming? That people really do take attention to their own voice and see that they're part of how are we making sure that what the real need is, what language of love it is that we're looking for, how are we being bold to actually speak to it. So this is a couple of years ago, and Lenore will probably remember this, but there was the case of Nike continuing on with a very famous football player, Colin Kaepernick, who took the knee to protest how poorly and also the violence against Blacks and racism. And it became this huge thing where a lot of sponsors, etc., went away. And Nike very purposefully took out ads with Colin. And it was this piece to say, also understanding who are the customers that you want to attract? Who are the ones that you want to make sure that you're working together with? Because as we were talking about before, there's something married in terms of your values, what you want to approach. Is this the group that you want to walk along together with? So as we look to really understanding what is the value, it's also a piece around understanding what is your own value. What is the piece that you come to the marketplace with, when be it a marketplace of a collaboration team, be it a marketplace for your customer, be it a marketplace for also the people you're working with and collaborating with, or even who are you working with as a supplier. It's understanding how will you working together, what are those pluralities of thoughts, and how do you make a difference? So that was a really good piece around how are we, at the end of the day, looking back on our own careers, looking back on ourselves and saying, how were we bold? How did we speak up at the water, not only at the water cooler, but when the decisions were made? So to ask at the beginning, what are the 3 factors that we as king or queen would change and affect? Those are the pieces as we go into this piece around what is value creation. This is an opportunity to look differently. The other example that we want to bring in is from Amazon. And yes, I know, obviously there's some moralistic challenges there's with Amazon right now, particularly like Anne Cecile said, yours, it is that piece of how are you treating your employees, and also how they've changed policies because they realized how important their employees were, and what they needed to do there. So that all by side, one of the things that has made Amazon so successful, and this is one of the reasons why they're so dominant in the marketplace, and also dominant in areas such as cloud and where no one really expected them. Everyone has an Alexa now. So it's this piece to say, Amazon does something very interesting. They work backwards. So they look at, you know, what are the outcomes? What are those things that if we were to announce this product, what would they say? So they always start, interestingly enough, when you're pitching an innovative idea at Amazon, they're talking about here working backwards. So there's 3 short documents. So they first have a press release. This is 1 page detailing what is it going to do? How is it going to make a difference? Then they have a second document, which is 6 pages long. And this is the frequently asked questions. So you working together with non-experts. So this is meaning go get the people who've, you know, in German they call it the Hausfrauen test, so the housewives test. In terms
That's
of
so hard.
but it is this piece to say if someone is not experienced or they don't have that, they have not fallen in love with the product or service, and they're coming in blindly, what would be those questions that they would ask, and what would be the questions and answers that you would give? And the third one is really looking at a real live portrayal of what is the customer experience. So looking at what are those nail-biting moments that matter to the customer, and how do you show up? So these are 3 very simple things that Amazon does: press release, FAQs, and then here customer experience walkthrough, so that really it can be that piece around what would frustrate a user most, what would be the things that would excite them most, and then how can we make it happen? They do one additional thing that I think is really key to how they approach innovation. They ask why, if an innovative idea didn't make it through. And as we know, innovation processes, you have tons of ideas, but they ask, what barriers did we put up that this idea didn't get through? And then they actively work on, you know, was there too much admin? Was there too much administration layers? Was there no proponent? And so they interestingly, with that, what were the barriers? One of the biggest barriers was part-time for innovation. And so at Amazon, if you have an innovative idea, that then becomes your job. So those just two examples out of the practice here, looking at how are you being bold, and then making sure that those are the customers or the vendors and what you want to display to the world. And then the second one is really looking at how do you work backwards in terms of how are you actually adding value to what people want.
Yeah, and I think when we have all those things in mind, then you may wonder, what do I do with all that? Yeah, that's why we have recommendations. Like, that's what we do that. And they usually start with a question, or they're always almost always, fast always, whatever, in form of questions. And so first, whatever your position is, ask yourself, where can you create value?
Yeah.
It can be the relationship you have with your colleagues, or the relationship you have with your boss, or if you're a boss, with your employees. And then if you have contact with the clients, what can you do about it? What is the one small step that could change everything? Remember, you have the crown on your head. You just don't remember it. So we're here to remind you, you can do it. And so the next question is, what is the love language of your customer? How do they speak? What do they need to hear to say so that they feel that you really care about them and that your purpose is to add value to their life?
Because you really understand them. And I think that, yeah, exactly. It goes deeper than it's speaking, but then understanding why is that an important love language for them.
Yeah, and getting it and being like, okay, for them, this is important because, and I think sometimes the best customer, or when you understand a customer so well that you feel that you could be the customer, or sometimes you are the customer yourself, you know? Right. And so going so deep is one of the most important, and it's all about being humans and centering on the human and on the human side of business more than on other facts. Because when we get to this level of understanding each other, of speaking the same language of love, then everything is possible. I can add value to your life, you can also add value to mine, and we can start an exchange. Our last question is, then about what do the end user actually need.
Yeah.
And refer back to the blast number 6, because sometimes we have, or at least when you work on creating value to the other, we have our ideas of what we think people need.
Mm-hmm.
And getting out of this situation of, yes, I know, to, okay, I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to be okay to be wrong and to even be surprised about what my people need.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's also the door to more value creation, because you are creating exactly what people need. And if it's not exactly, you can improve. And that's also the idea of iteration, blah, blah, blah. We'll speak about that later. We have also an exercise for you. And it's simply to take the exercise from Amazon and do it for your organization when you have a creative idea. First step, write a press release. What would you write? 1 page. If you don't know what a press release is because you've never done that, there are enough examples in the internet. Google it and you'll find a good explanation, a good way to do that. Then have the FAQ, for non-experts. How would you explain how your product works to a 5 years old, for example, or what will customer be most disappointed about, what will be the most the most excited about, so one side and the other. And the last one is the customer experience, to looking at the touch points and those moments where the client is about to throw your product away because they just don't know how it works. And we all had this experience. And so how will you care that this problem is solved? And that's again the question of, make sure to give some love, give some love tokens, so that people feel that they can trust you and work with you. And now you are going to introduce the last part about the focus.
Yeah, exactly. So the key here that we've been talking about is value creation is not equal value creation. It really is dependent upon the context in terms of what does the end user actually need, want, what is their appetite for. So this piece around how are we enamoring the users is really then to ask that question and pose that question. How is your value add really looking at this piece around nimbleness, adaptability, and, like we like to say, non-scalability? So this piece around really understanding who are you making it for, what's that difference that it's going to make in his or her life or their industry in terms of whatever it is, if it's their value chain, but really saying, okay, going away from these huge pools around, for example, just take talent management, going away from a blanket high potential class to then say, okay, it's personal. So when I'm looking at my career path, what are the different options? How can I grow? What are the experiences that I need? It can be part of a pool. It can be part of a talent pipeline, but that's not the message that you're sending to the individual. I like to say it's personal. Okay. So it's nice to know about goldfish, but I want to know what kind of food am I getting? How am I growing? And then also to that piece is say understanding what the environment is that you need to grow into. So it's a really simple recommendation is when you're looking at your value creation in a disruptive world, we really recommend how is it adding to the nimbleness? How is it adding to the adaptability? How adaptive are you? And this third piece is don't try and scale it for everybody on the planet. Know who you are, what you can offer, where you really feel a niche, and that you understand what the unique potential of your customer, of your team, of your employees are. And then use that, leverage that together with them, focusing in on your authenticity around learning, focusing in on your transparency around what are you hoping to accomplish, what's your end goal, how will you get there. Using that plurality of thought and that diverse thought, that it's not just the in team, but that you also take different experts, that you source feedback from your customers to say, what are you actually going to use this for? And understand at times there's going to be some band-aids, at times there's going to be some great solutions. And then understanding how will you answer those questions when something doesn't work, and when are you adopting it, and knowing that it's all part of value creation in a disrupted world, is you can never come with a perfect solution. Coming with 80% and coming with 70% and figuring out how do we build this together, that's where the magic comes in terms of co-creation, because it's this better way really of teaming and innovating, because you're understanding what the situation is, where you're trying to get to, and how can you tap into the different potentials that are at the table to help you get there. And with that, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, we have hit the half hour. We really appreciate you coming. We really appreciate you taking part, and thank you so much for your answers in the chat. We love it. You can find us on YouTube, as of course here on Instagram. We're also looking into creating a different source on Facebook. So thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. And any questions, any suggestions that you have, I am on Instagram under HR Improv.
And I am under AC Graber with the / under.
Perfect. And otherwise, you can, of course, find us right here at Co-Creator Space here on Instagram, as well as on YouTube.
Yep, exactly. So have a good day. Enjoy whatever you're doing, a coffee, a mojito, whatever you want.
Very good.
See you.
Exactly. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.